Hi, everyone. This is John Girardi with Right to Life of Central California, bringing you another in our daily series of videos for 40 Days for Life. 40 Days for Life is the international campaign of prayer and presence outside abortion clinics throughout the country and throughout the world. If you want to learn more about our campaign, you can go to rtlcc.org or give us a call at 229-2229. First, one thing I want to alert you all to is that we will have the closing, on the closing day of 40 Days for Life, Sunday, November 1st, there will be a Mass offered at Holy Spirit Catholic Church by Bishop Joseph Brennan. So I would like to invite all of you to attend that. Any of you who perhaps you're Catholic, you may want to attend. Feel free to come join us and join Bishop Brennan for the closing of 40 Days. Now, as we're doing this video, just yesterday, Amy Coney Barrett was confirmed and sworn in as the next Associate Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. And I want to talk over the next couple of days about some of the issues where the Supreme Court could get into various abortion-related questions, and how Judge Barrett's presence on the court could be decisive. As everyone knows now, there's going to be a 6-3 Republican appointee majority on the Supreme Court. Obviously, being appointed by a Republican doesn't mean everything. But other than John Roberts, who on one vote, one case involving abortion, was flaky, those 6 justices on the court have pretty good records when it comes to abortion. So we want to ask, what are the kinds of things that could happen? The main thing that could happen, and someday I hope this will happen, is to try to have a court ruling that challenges the big one, Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade and its successor case, Planned Parenthood versus Casey. We talked about it a lot in this series of videos, but the chief thing that Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey do is they basically take the abortion regulation decision out of the hands of state legislatures. By saying that abortion is a right contained in the Constitution itself, the U.S. Constitution, it deprives state legislatures of their ability to regulate abortion as they want. Okay, obviously we have to respect the Constitution and what is contained in the Constitution as kind of our foundational law. Okay, individual state governments can't do stuff like, outlaw free speech or ban ownership of guns or, engage in searches and seizures of people's houses without a warrant. Some of these essential rights that are contained in the Bill of Rights are applied against the states through the 14th Amendment. So states can't just pass laws that violate the Constitution. And that is essentially what the Supreme Court did in Roe and Planned Parenthood versus Casey, is say that abortion is one of those constitutional rights, one of those constitutionally protected rights that states can't just ignore by banning abortion at certain points. Now, obviously, we disagree with that. Abortion is not hidden somewhere secretly in the text of the Constitution. It's not hidden even implicitly in the Constitution. It's not part of the history and tradition of this country as a protected constitutional right. It is a right cooked up by the Supreme Court in the 1970s. So if a challenge to Roe v. Wade or Planned Parenthood versus Casey comes, basically if a state passes a law that would contradict Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey, like many of the laws that have been passed, particularly in 2018 by a number of pro-life states throughout the country, if those laws are finally challenged and brought up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court decides to question its former holdings, what would Judge Barrett's presence do? I think Judge Barrett's presence would be decisive. Because before Barrett came to the court, let's assume a universe where Ruth Bader Ginsburg is still alive, you have a possible 5-4 split. The 4 Democrat-appointed justices are all very solidly in the camp of resisting almost any regulation on abortion whatsoever. They're certainly not going to want to get rid of Planned Parenthood versus Casey or Roe v. Wade for something less restrictive. And that would leave the 4 conservative justices on one side and John Roberts in the middle. And I don't trust John Roberts as far as I can throw him, but I certainly don't think John Roberts wants to be the 5th vote in a split 5-4 holding to basically to overturn Roe v. Wade, to overturn Planned Parenthood versus Casey. I think Roberts is also wary of things like the political ramifications of it, the appearances, the apparent legitimacy of the court, all these things that John Roberts thinks about that I think he shouldn't, because I think what he should think about is the law and the Constitution. But he certainly does. He certainly does think about these things. I think that's quite clear. I think his ruling in June Medical Services, which was a Supreme Court v. Louisiana. June Medical Services, which is a Supreme Court case from earlier this year, is very clear that he is looking at things other than purely what the law requires. But I think John Roberts is willing to be part of a 6-3 majority to do something. And a 6-3 majority with a female justice in the majority, perhaps even a female justice writing the majority opinion. So I think this is the importance of Barrett, is that there are a lot of controversial topics where John Roberts doesn't want to be part of a 5-4 majority, but he might be part of a 6-3 majority, maybe even to limit it, to mitigate the nature of the ruling. But I think Barrett provides us with what I like to call Roberts insurance. So I think Judge Barrett will be critically important from Justice Barrett, I should say, from the perspective of bringing John Roberts along. I think on a 5-4 court, John Roberts is not likely to overturn Roe v. Wade, but he might join with a 6-3 majority decision. For Right to Life of Central California, I'm John Girardi. Hi, this is John Girardi with Right to Life of Central California, bringing you another in our daily series of videos for 40 Days for Life. 40 Days for Life is the international campaign of prayer and presence outside abortion clinics around the country and throughout the world. If you want to learn more about our 40 Days for Life campaign, you can go to rtlcc.org or get in touch with us at 229-2229. So we're talking about the kinds of things that Justice Barrett might wind up dealing with on the Supreme Court as the kinds of abortion cases that might come her way over the next several years. And I think one of the important abortion-related topics has to do with religious liberty questions. How much a First Amendment right to religious liberty can coexist with various kinds of statutory mandates that people or businesses provide contraceptive coverage or abortifacient contraceptive coverage. That's kind of the key thing. But we saw in the case of the Hobby Lobby case, where Hobby Lobby was challenging this mandate placed on them by the federal government. They said, hey, we're a closely held corporation that doesn't want to pay for abortifacient contraception. We think this is violating our rights under the First Amendment, the free exercise of religion, and RFRA, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which is a piece of legislation that was passed in the early 1990s under President Clinton, which basically beefs up the protections of the First Amendment. So while Hobby Lobby won their case, other kinds of entities have not had their issues fully resolved, and most particularly the Little Sisters of the Poor. The Little Sisters of the Poor, an order of Catholic nuns who, because of the 2012 Obamacare HHS mandate, were being forced by the federal government to provide abortifacient contraception coverage for people on their health insurance plan, most of whom are nuns. Okay? If you can think of anyone who needs that less than a nun, let me know. And these nuns were saying, look, we think this violates our religious beliefs, this violates everything we stand for. And basically, they were sort of the plaintiff that was sort of representing all religious nonprofits. And so they were making this claim. This is violating our First Amendment right to free exercise of religion. And their case has gone up and down the courts a number of times. They won a very brief reprieve from the Supreme Court just a couple of months ago. And this case is almost certainly going to come before the Supreme Court yet again in a couple of months. And what the problem for the nuns is that they kept getting these kind of weak 5-4 rulings. Weak 5-4 rulings with either, at one point, Anthony Kennedy, and at another point, John Roberts, sort of not giving them a sort of final victory and just resolving their dispute in favor of their religious liberty rights. Well, with Justice Barrett on the court, again, it's no longer a 5-4 thing. Now it's a 6-3 thing. And with 5 justices who are far more conservative than John Roberts, Roberts is going to be willing to join, again, he's going to be willing to join a 6-3 majority more likely than he's going to join a 5-4 majority. Roberts wants to be part of consensus. He doesn't like division on the court. And while he's not going to be part of a bitterly disputed 5-4 victory, he might be part of a 6-3 majority. So again, just like in the example of a challenge to Roe v. Wade or Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which we talked about yesterday, to acknowledge the religious liberty rights of plaintiffs who are fighting challenges against mandates for abortifacient contraception coverage. Basically, John Roberts, again, Justice Barrett is going to function as a kind of John Roberts insurance. I think she makes it far more likely that John Roberts will side with a 6-3 majority. He's not going to side with a 5-4 majority, but he might side with a 6-3 majority. And this is, again, the benefit of having Justice Barrett on the court. For Right to Life of Central California, I'm John Girardi.